Back in 1989, a quiet Chicago sitcom about a working-class family suddenly introduced a suspenders-wearing genius who was only supposed to appear once, and somehow took over the entire show. In one episode, that same character would accidentally clone himself, create a cooler alter ego, and even turn himself into Bruce Lee, all using science that made absolutely no sense, but somehow felt completely normal watching it. And behind the scenes, the cast didn't always know when he'd show up, how big his role would be, or even what insane storyline he'd be part of next. These are 15 things fans never noticed about Family Matters. If you grew up watching this show, stick around, because some of these moments completely change how you see it. Number 1. Steve Urkel was only supposed to appear in one episode, but everything changed the moment Jaleel White walked onto set and delivered the now iconic line, "Did I do that?" The character first appeared in Season 1, Episode 12, titled Laura's First Date. The writers created Urkel as a one-off, nerdy neighbor to disrupt a single storyline. But during filming, Jaleel White improvised small physical quirks, like the voice, the posture, and even how Urkel would move his arms, and the live audience reaction was so loud it reportedly threw off the timing of the scene. What happened next was immediate and very specific. The studio audience laughed so hard that producers rewrote upcoming episodes mid-production to bring Urkel back. Within just a few episodes, his screen time increased dramatically. By Season 2, he wasn't a guest anymore, he was the main attraction. Which is kind of wild when you think about it, because the show was originally centered around Carl Winslow and his family. But suddenly, a side character with high pants and a squeaky voice became the reason people tuned in. And from that point on, Family Matters didn't just feature Urkel, it revolved around him. Number 2. Jaleel White actually based Steve Urkel's voice on a real person, and it wasn't originally meant to sound that exaggerated. During auditions, White experimented with different vocal styles and landed on a higher-pitched tone inspired by a nerdy character he imagined. But once the audience responded, he pushed it further. Over time, the voice became more nasal, more stretched, and more cartoonish. But here's the specific twist. Maintaining that voice was physically exhausting. White had to strain his throat for hours during filming, especially in episodes where Urkel had long monologues or emotional scenes. In interviews, he later explained that switching between his normal voice and Urkel's voice multiple times per day actually caused vocal fatigue. And the situation got even stranger when he started playing multiple characters, because now he had to instantly switch voices mid-scene, which, honestly, sounds like a nightmare for your vocal cords. But somehow, he made it look effortless on screen. Number 3. The iconic Urkel transformation chamber. The machine that created Stefan Urkel was built using random leftover props from other shows. When the writers introduced Stefan in Season 5, they needed a believable science machine that could transform Urkel into a smoother, more confident version of himself. Instead of designing something from scratch, the prop department assembled it using parts from old sets, including blinking lights, tubes, and control panels borrowed from sci-fi productions. The actual effect worked like this. Jaleel White would film the scene twice, once as Urkel and once as Stefan, while standing in the same position. The footage was then edited together with lighting effects to make it look like a transformation. And here's the weird part. Stefan became so popular that he started appearing regularly, essentially turning one actor into two main characters competing for Laura's attention. At that point, the show wasn't even pretending to be grounded anymore. It had fully embraced cartoon logic. Number 4. In one episode, Steve Urkel literally becomes Bruce Lee, and the production treated it completely seriously. The Season 8 episode, Kung Fu Fighting, features Urkel transforming into Bruce Lee Urkel after entering his machine. Jaleel White had to learn actual martial arts choreography for the scene, including kicks, punches, and fight timing. The fight sequence itself was carefully staged with stunt coordination, and the crew even adjusted camera angles to make Urkel appear faster and more skilled than usual. But what makes this moment stand out is how committed everyone was. The lighting, music, and pacing all shift to match a classic martial arts film, even though the premise is completely ridiculous. Because apparently, in the world of Family Matters, a teenage nerd could just wake up one day and become a martial arts legend. And nobody, not even Carl, questions it. Number 5. The Winslow house layout actually makes no physical sense, and it changes multiple times throughout the series. If you pay close attention, the kitchen, living room, and staircase shift positions depending on the episode. In early seasons, the staircase is positioned differently relative to the front door, and certain hallways appear or disappear entirely. This happened because the set was redesigned multiple times to accommodate larger scenes, especially as more characters and bigger storylines were added. At one point, the production expanded the living room area to allow for more physical comedy, which meant rearranging walls and entryways. But instead of maintaining a consistent layout, they prioritized filming convenience. So technically, the Winslow house exists in a kind of sitcom dimension where rooms move around depending on what the script needs. And honestly, if Urkel can build a cloning machine in the basement, the shifting staircase is probably the least concerning thing in that house. Alright, quick pause. If you're enjoying this, make sure to like the video and subscribe. There's a lot more coming up, and some of the later facts get even crazier. Number 6. Jaleel White didn't just play multiple characters. He had to perform full conversations with different versions of himself using precise timing, physical transformations, and almost no on-set interaction. Over the course of the series, Jaleel White portrayed Steve Urkel, Stefan Urkel, Myrtle Urkel, and several alternate versions of the character. But the real challenge wasn't just switching voices or costumes. It was filming scenes where all of them interacted. To pull this off, the production used a locked camera setup and filmed the same scene multiple times. First, White would perform as one character, delivering lines to empty space. Then he would change wardrobe, posture, and voice, return to the exact same marks on the floor, and perform the next character's responses. But here's where it gets extremely technical. He had to match the exact timing of pauses, reactions, and eye lines from the previous take. If his timing was even slightly off, the illusion would break when the footage was combined. In scenes with 3 characters, like Steve, Stefan, and Myrtle, this process had to be repeated multiple times with perfect consistency in lighting, props, and positioning. And the wild part is, he wasn't getting real-time feedback during those final takes. He was essentially acting against memory, imagining the other character's energy while switching personalities completely. Which is kind of unbelievable when you think about it, because what looks like a goofy sitcom bit is actually closer to precision filmmaking. Number 7. The show quietly wrote out one of its main characters, Judy Winslow, without any explanation. Judy, the youngest Winslow child, appears regularly in early seasons, but suddenly disappears after season 4. There's no farewell episode, no mention of where she went. She's just gone. Behind the scenes, the decision was made due to budget cuts and shifting focus toward Urkel-driven storylines. The writers chose not to address her absence in the script at all. So one day, the Winslows just have fewer children. No explanation, no concern, no, "Hey, where's Judy?" Which is kind of dark if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. But the show just keeps moving like nothing happened. And if you think these are surprising, the next few facts get even stranger. Number 8. Family Matters randomly became a 1940s crime drama. At one point, Family Matters just decided to stop being a sitcom for an entire episode. The show suddenly drops Carl Winslow into a gritty 1940s noir world after he falls asleep watching an old crime movie, and the shift is immediate. No slow transition, no explanation. One minute you're in a bright, familiar living room. The next, everything is dark, smoky, and dramatic, like someone accidentally changed the channel to a completely different show. And they don't play it as a joke. The episode goes all in. Shadowy lighting, vintage suits, old-school slang. The whole thing feels like a classic detective film. Even the performances change. Jaleel White dials Urkel way down. His voice drops, his delivery gets sharper, and suddenly he's not the awkward neighbor anymore. He actually fits in this world. Meanwhile, Reginald Johnson turns Carl into a hard-edged detective who looks like he's been dealing with trouble all night. and honestly, he seems a little too comfortable doing it. And the attention to detail is surprisingly serious. The sets are packed with vintage props, the costumes are spot on, and even the dialogue sounds like it came straight out of a 1940s script. At times, you almost forget you're watching Family Matters. Almost. Because every once in a while, you remember, this is the same show where Steve Urkel builds cloning machines and turns into Stefan, which somehow makes this even funnier. And the strangest part? This isn't a quick parody or a throwaway gag. The show fully commits to the concept for the entire episode, then immediately goes back to normal the next week like nothing ever happened. No explanation, no follow-up. Just Family Matters casually becoming a noir crime drama for a day, and never mentioning it again. Number 9. Family Matters didn't start as its own idea at all. It was quietly built out of another show, and most viewers never realized they were watching a spin-off evolve into something entirely different. The character of Harriet Winslow was first introduced on the sitcom Perfect Strangers, where she worked as an elevator operator in the Chicago Chronicle building. She appeared in multiple episodes, interacting with the main cast, and her grounded personality made her stand out enough for producers to expand her story. That decision led directly to Family Matters in 1989, with Harriet positioned as the center of a working-class Chicago family. At the beginning, the show leaned heavily into that concept. The stories focused on parenting, work-life balance, and everyday issues, with Jo Marie Payton anchoring the entire tone. But once Urkel exploded in popularity, something very specific happened. The original premise slowly drifted into the background. Episodes became less about Harriet's world and more about whatever chaos Urkel brought with him that week. And eventually, the connection to Perfect Strangers almost completely disappeared, which is kind of fascinating because the show didn't just spin off, it slowly reinvented itself until it barely resembled where it started. Number 10. Steve Urkel's entire physical presence, from his posture to the way he walked, was carefully engineered through wardrobe choices that literally forced his body to move differently. The high-waisted pants worn by Jaleel White were pulled up significantly higher than normal, shortening his torso and exaggerating his proportions on camera. Then came the suspenders. They weren't just for style, they were tightened enough to slightly restrict his movement, creating that stiff, awkward posture where his shoulders stay raised and his arms move in sharp, unnatural motions. Even the shoes played a role, encouraging smaller, quicker steps that added to his nervous, jittery energy. All of this created a very specific physical rhythm. When Urkel walked into a room, tripped, or turned suddenly, his entire body reacted in a way that felt exaggerated, but consistent. And the best part is, none of it was accidental. It was all designed to make sure that before he even said a word, you already knew something chaotic was about to happen. Number 11. Several episodes were actively rewritten during production just to increase Steve Urkel's screen time, and the shift could happen midweek. As Jaleel White became the breakout star, writers started tracking audience reactions during tapings. If a joke landed especially well, or if the audience exploded at a certain type of Urkel moment, scripts would be adjusted almost immediately. Entire scenes focused on the Winslow family were sometimes cut or shortened after table reads, just to make room for more Urkel. In some cases, new scenes were written overnight and inserted into episodes already being filmed. That meant actors like Reginald Johnson and Jo Marie Payton would show up expecting one version of the episode and end up filming something completely different. Which sounds chaotic, because it was. Most sitcoms lock scripts early to avoid production issues, but Family Matters was basically being rewritten in real time based on how hard people laughed. And at that point, the show wasn't just reacting to the audience, it was chasing Urkel moments on purpose. Number 12. The show didn't just rely on audience laughter. Producers carefully engineered when and how people would react to Steve Urkel's biggest moments. Before tapings, warm-up comedians would specifically coach the audience to respond loudly to certain catchphrases, especially so when Urkel delivered those lines, the reaction was already primed. But it didn't stop there. In post-production, editors would sometimes extend or layer laughter under key moments, stretching reactions just a little longer to make jokes land harder. There were even cases where laughter from completely different scenes was reused to boost weaker moments. Because by that point, Urkel wasn't just a character, he was a formula. And honestly, once you realize the laughter was being fine-tuned like that, you start to notice just how perfectly timed every single Urkel entrance feels. Almost a little too perfect. Number 13. One specific storyline marked the exact moment Family Matters fully abandoned reality, and it involved Steve Urkel creating a fully functional robot version of himself. In the later seasons, Urkel builds Urkelbot, a robotic duplicate designed to help around the house. But instead of being treated like a one-off joke, the robot becomes a recurring character with its own personality and dialogue. To make it work, Jaleel White performed in a stiff, mechanical style, carefully controlling every movement to mimic robotic timing. The costume itself was bulky and restrictive, forcing slower, more deliberate motion. Scenes involving Urkelbot required precise choreography, especially when objects were handled or when the robot malfunctioned mid-action. And here's the part that really pushes it over the edge. The family just accepts it. No long adjustment, no real shock. There's just a robot now, living in the house, which is kind of hilarious because at this point, the Winslows have seen so much that a fully functioning robot is basically treated like a slightly annoying cousin. Number 14. In the middle of the series, the show suddenly replaced Harriet Winslow, the literal mother of the family, with a different actress, and barely acknowledged it on screen. For the first 8 seasons, Harriet was played by Jo Marie Payton, who had been there since the show's origin on Perfect Strangers and was one of the emotional anchors of the entire series. But during season 9, Payton chose to leave before production finished. Behind the scenes, she had grown frustrated with the direction of the show as it leaned further into over-the-top Urkel storylines, and after nearly a decade, she was ready to move on. So the producers made a very specific decision. They didn't write her out. Instead, they recast the role with Judy Ann Elder. And the transition is barely a transition. The new Harriet simply appears in later episodes. Same house, same family, same role. Just a completely different person. No explanation, no storyline, no reaction. Which is kind of surreal, because replacing the central parent in a sitcom should feel massive. But here, it's treated like someone just rearranged the furniture. And somehow, the show just keeps going. Number 15. The show accidentally created one of the most iconic catchphrases in TV history. Steve Urkel's most famous line wasn't originally meant to define the character or the show. When Jaleel White first delivered it, the line was just a throwaway moment, a quick reaction after something went wrong. But the audience response was immediate. They didn't just laugh, they exploded. So the writers started bringing it back. At first, it showed up occasionally, just when Urkel caused chaos. But very quickly, something changed. The line stopped being a reaction and became an expectation. Entire scenes were built around setting it up. You could feel it coming. Urkel walks in, something breaks, someone gets frustrated, and then, right on cue, "Did I do that?" And every single time, the audience responded like it was the first time they'd heard it. But here's what's interesting. By the later seasons, the show was leaning so heavily into bigger, crazier storylines, clones, robots, transformations, that the catchphrase actually became a way to ground everything again. No matter how ridiculous things got, that one line reminded you exactly what show you were watching. And in a strange way, it became the anchor. Because when you hear it, you don't think about the plot. You think about Urkel, which is kind of incredible, because a single, simple line ended up defining an entire era of television. By the end of the series, Steve Urkel hadn't just become the most popular character on Family Matters, he had completely redefined what the show even was. It started as a grounded family sitcom about the Winslows, focused on everyday life, parenting, and real-world problems. But over time, it turned into something completely different. Cloning machines, alternate personalities, robots, martial arts transformations, entire episodes that feel like different genres. And somehow, it all worked. Because no matter how far the show drifted, it always came back to the same thing. That living room. That family. And the moment Steve Urkel walks in, and you already know something is about to go wrong. And maybe that's why a simple line like, "Did I do that?" ended up meaning so much. Because it wasn't just a joke. It was the reset button. No matter how crazy things got, that one moment brought everything back to what made the show work in the first place. Which is kind of amazing when you think about it, because most shows fall apart when they change that much. This one just kept going. So here's the question. Do you prefer the early, more grounded version of Family Matters, or the later seasons when it went completely off the rails? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos like this.